Welcome to Resilience Radio. I'm Urban Eisenberg, host of the show, owner of Resilience Occupational Therapy. As always, the opinions on this show are not necessarily shared by me or Resilience Occupational Therapy. I like to feature a variety of different perspectives, and not everything will fit everyone's healthcare needs. Additionally, none of this is meant to be medically prescriptive or diagnostic in any way. I'm in the middle of working on an interview that I did with Noël Groves, who is an herbalist who has written a book about sleep. That book is not published yet, and I'm planning on releasing that episode in another couple of months. In any case, there are a couple of snippets that did not fit into that main episode that I think were some really interesting standalone conversations that came up. Today's episode is a conversation about sleep and body mechanics, as well as herbal support and dietary needs. More within my scope of practice is sleep ergonomics, and I feel like it's always a tricky one to tell people how to sleep physically speaking, because really I want to make sure you do sleep. So if you're going to sleep best on your belly, like, I'm not going to tell you, no, you should be back sleeping, like, because if you can't get rest that way. So it's always an interesting one for me to start being like, well, I can't just say I'm not going to give people any advice on sleep ergonomics because I want them to be able to sleep. So I'm trying to come up with sort of my own general recommendations for not pinching nerves in your shoulder, for, the sleep apnea stuff that you discussed, as far as if you're having some breathing issues, figuring out how to elevate, which a lot of people think means just having a bigger pillow, which is definitely not going to help, because then you're actually cutting off airways more. So how do you actually have a wedge or put bricks under the top of the bed and such? So I've been thinking about sleep in terms of those more biomechanical things, because we spend ideally a third of our day or quarter of our day sleeping. and that's a huge area that we don't tend to think about, our body mechanics of sleeping.
Ooh, well, I'm fascinated by this because I know a little bit, but not very much. But I can see even in my own life and that of my husband that, he was having a lot of back troubles. I was having a hard time. It's really easy for me to not sleep well. And so I was having a really hard time with the mattress that we have. And then finally, it's like, all right, that's it. I really hate this mattress. I'm going to pay the money to get a new mattress. And he fought me on that because the mattress we had was not that old, but I really hate this mattress for so many different reasons, including physical discomfort. And so we got a new mattress. And a while later, I said, your back isn't going out as much as it used to go out. Is there a reason why? Are you doing your exercises in the morning? And he's like, no, I really should be doing my exercises in the morning more often. But I hate to admit it, but I do think that the old mattress was making my back problems worse, and the new mattress is making it better. So he doesn't have sleep problems, but he has a lot of pain problems. And for myself, I feel like I'm the princess and the pea with my pillow and trying to get the right pillow and get it to stay at the right state so that it doesn't bother things like headaches and migraines and other things that may disrupt my sleep, but also may be caused by disrupted sleep. And so there is definitely a bit around that. So I'd love to hear more from you on that. And also just, sleeping on your back. I know it's better for your body ergonomics, but it can also worsen sleep apnea. So do you have any additional tips to share with us?
Well, one of my thoughts was, the sleeping on the back, often people still want their pillow under their head. So that becomes particularly the sleep apnea issue from that. So I like to think about, when people are dealing with sleep apnea, wedge pillows, like the big wedges that you could slide underneath your pillow and such, that are, especially if you have a good headboard and it's not just going to slide away. So it's essentially giving yourself like the hospital bed tilt at the top. And I don't have a good recommendation of specifically what brand or anything, because I haven't actually gotten into purchasing those. But in theory, I like those a lot. One of the things I was looking at from side sleeping is we tend to focus on the height of our pillow, but actually having another pillow that goes underneath, but below your shoulder, so along your ribs, so that you actually have a sort of almost a gutter space for your arm to rest between the pillow for your head and the pillow for your back. Because what you're doing when you're sleeping on your side often is you might get your head in a comfortable position, but then your shoulder might be jammed into the mattress in a way that you don't like, and your low back might not be positioned, or your spine in general might not be positioned. So a small pillow at your mid ribs as you're side sleeping sometimes can help, but it's really tricky and independent, and individual. Another is if it's someone's shoulder on the opposite side that they're sleeping from is hurting, having a really big body pillow to rest your arm on so you're not closing in that shoulder is one that I've been thinking about. So I feel like I'm just getting into some of those practical recommendations and trying to figure out what actually there's the ideal ways to sleep. But as I said, if your sleeping is so individual and personal that telling someone, oh, you should like wake up and check and make sure you're sleeping right, doesn't work. And the recommendations for side sleeping are going to be very different than recommendations for back sleeping. And most people who are side sleepers or back sleepers switch between the two. They're not 100%. So do you want to have to wake yourself all the way up to get into the correct position for the other one? It's sort of a lot of give and take, like a lot of like what's going to work for you. Like I just recommended the other day, the bigger pillow to rest someone's arm on. They said that helped for a little bit until it fell off the bed and the dog decided it was theirs. So it's like having to wake up in the middle of the night to wrestle the pillow away from the dog was not going to help this person's shoulder heal properly. So it can be complex and individual there.
Yeah, completely. And one of the things that I've noticed, and I don't know, because you know more about occupational therapy and body mechanics than I do, but sometimes people's arms are going numb in the middle of the night. It's usually whatever the arm is that's like flopping over, I think, that's on the outer part. And so I think putting your arm on a pillow or something a little higher up can sometimes help. But I've also noticed that sometimes it connects to weird sodiums like MSG and glutamate, and all of that tends to exacerbate that. I don't know if there's a blood pressure component or nerve component or whatever it is that people, start to lose their feeling in their hands a little bit more often. So just kind of being aware of those patterns that might be solved by what you're having throughout the day, as well as just your body mechanics at night, so that you're not waking up going, oh, this discomfort in my arms.
So if people tend to have a tendency towards their arms falling asleep or nerve stuff happening for them, and it doesn't seem specific to a mechanical, that usually it is mechanically speaking, the brachial plexus and your pecs are being pinched in those cases, and that's and affecting things further down. But do you feel like there is any herbal support that can make people less likely to have their nerves respond in that being pinched way when
there may be. Yeah, there may be. So I would consider herbs like skullcap and blue vervain that I mentioned earlier. They are herbs that have a nervine, relaxant property, but they also specifically can go in and help ease nerve irritations. And so those may also be something that could help there. There are a variety of other things as well, but those would be probably the first two herbs that I would think of. And I would also just try to be thinking about what's getting to the root of the problem. So the herbs can be helpful, but if there's a physical reason why that nerve is being pinched, whether it's what the inflammatory status is of the body or whether it's how the body mechanics are, I think that's addressing that is going to have the most long-term meaningful solution. But the herbs might also help adjust the response of things. And it may also be other things like your mineral balance throughout the day. A lot of people, when their electrolytes, maybe they're low on certain minerals or they're too high on certain minerals, that if their electrolyte balance is off, that can also make their nerves a little bit more likely to get cranky on us.
Do you feel like Epsom salt, taken like Epsom salt foot baths or Epsom salt baths, beyond, what do you feel like that does? And do you feel like that helps nerve as well as sort of muscle engagement?
Yeah, I thank you for reminding me about topical magnesium. So this just recently came up with some classes and some clients where folks were really talking about having so much better quality sleep and not having as much cramps and nerve pain and those kinds of concerns when they're working with topical magnesium, which could be in the form of an Epsom salt. I don't personally take baths, and I break out in hives from neck to toe if I get into some Epsom salts. I have a very strong sulfur reaction. So that's not usually my go-to, but there are a variety of different topical remedies, and Epsom baths work fantastic for some people. It's one way of delivering magnesium topically, but there are a whole bunch of other topical remedies. And so some people do get really great results from that because it's very soothing to the nerves and also relaxing to the musculature as well. So that is a good one to remember.
So it is actually soothing to the nerves. It's not just affecting the muscle's ability to contract and release. It's actually having an effect on the.
As far as I'm aware, it is soothing to the nerves. I don't know all the biology of it, but that's how I think of it. Maybe there's more. I know that magnesium has more than 400 different things that it does throughout the body, and we tend to be deficient in it, especially in our country. If we're not overtly deficient, we might just be subclinically deficient. And a lot of people do notice an improvement in their pain, their nerve, their muscle health, as well as their sleep quality when they are able to adequately address that deficiency.
And why do you think that our culture tends to have magnesium deficiency? Is that certain dark greens not being consumed much, or?
Yeah, I mean, we could always be eating more dark greens. Most of us would do well to eat more dark greens. And I think almonds and cashews are also pretty good sources of magnesium. But also our soils are very depleted. And so even if you were eating a really healthy diet, which we know most Americans are not, but even if you were, you might not be getting it from the food because the food is being grown in depleted soil, or we need adequate stomach acid, healthy gut lining to absorb those nutrients. And a lot of Americans have really cruddy digestion. And so even if you're consuming it, you may not be properly absorbing and digesting it. If you're on a proton pump inhibitor, there may be a reason to be on the proton pump inhibitor. We don't want untreated GERD. That can be bad. However, that is going to dramatically reduce your capacity to absorb almost all nutrients, which can cause a lot of downstream negative effects if that's a long-term protocol. So working with a holistically minded practitioner to help address the GERD and also wean off of, with the doctor's guidance, wean off of the proton pump inhibitor and then restore healthy gut function can be an important big picture that can be really helpful for our nutrient status, because we have a lot of kind of subclinical nutrient deficiencies in this country that have a lot of negative effects on our ability to handle stress, our ability to function, and may also affect our sleep as well.
I hope you enjoyed this conversation. If so, you can always subscribe to the podcatcher of your choice and get a new interview every week. If there are any particular guests you're hoping to have on the show or conversations you'd like to hear me have, I'm always open to suggestions. So feel free to reach out to me at irvin.eisenberg@gmail.com. Today's music was brought to you by Aaron Marcus with their tune Some Biological Process. I hope you enjoyed. Take care.